And news just in, Western Cape Premier Helen Zille has filed her submissions to the Democratic Alliance, stating her reasons why she should not be suspended. The details of her submissions have not yet been released. The party is likely to respond tomorrow. DA leader Mmusi Maimane announced on the weekend that Zille was suspended from all party activities following her controversial tweets on colonialism. But Zille disputes this, saying the party's own rules aren't being adhered to. The Democratic Alliance Disciplinary Committee will be meeting on Friday to decide on the misconduct charges against her. In an about turn, the DA issued a statement hours later saying the federal executive had temporarily suspended her from party activities, and this will be enforced until a conclusion of the disciplinary proceedings against her is reached. And of course, it remains to be seen what happens on Friday. Many saying that this will be a true test of DA leader Mmusi Maimane's authority, whether any action will be taken against Western Cape Premier Helen Zille based on her conduct in recent months. And joining us on the line is Lindsay Marstorp, National Spokesperson for Black First and Land First. Good evening to you, and thanks so much for your time. It's a very sticky situation for Mmusi Maimane in this case, and primarily in not upsetting the core voter base of the DA. Which way will this go, Lindsay, in your prediction?
Firstly, good day and thanks for having me. It's important to realize that the Democratic Alliance is a white, racist political party aimed at maintaining political power interests of white monopoly capital and imperialist control. So it's interesting to note that now when you position someone like Mmusi Maimane as the leader of the party, just like when Mazibuko was in the National Parliament, we have a similar moment now where we have to see who's in actual control of the party. And we see that white hegemonic control still rules the Democratic Alliance. We understand now, post this weekend, that Mmusi Maimane thought that he could instill leadership and direct the party in some pseudo-black centered way. He finds out for himself that he doesn't control the federal, and he doesn't control the party itself, and Helen Zille is still in control, and white thought and white people still maintain hegemonic control of the Democratic Alliance. So we expect this to pursue and maintain itself, and to understand that regardless of whether Helen Zille goes or not is inconsequential. The Democratic Alliance remains a white racist party that puts the interests of white people first. We understand this with the lived experience of black people in the city of Cape Town and in the other metros as well. It's important to also note that we see parties like AFF coming now out and saying that Helen Zille is a racist. At what point did they realize that she's a racist? At what point did they realize that when they gave the DA the metros that they're not giving it to a white racist Democratic Alliance? It's important also to note that voters and voters are not the key interest of the DA, or black voters are not the key interest of the DA, but it is white hegemonic power that remains the key interest. So the funders, the white people who run this party, the Johan Ruperts and the likes, as well as those who maintain hegemonic white control, white banks, and so the order must maintain itself. So they're towing a simple line of maintaining that power base and ensuring that white power remains central to the Democratic Alliance. And so we foresee that Helen Zille won't obviously go. She will remain in power. And it's also important to note that when Mmusi Maimane comes out and he says that she's suspended, she still gets to remain as the Premier of the Western Cape. How do you suspend someone and maintain them as the Premier of the Western Cape? It doesn't make any sense. Further to note as well is that how do you say that colonialism is bad, but you don't recognize that colonialism is the land theft, it's the taking of the land, it's the taking of the ways of living, it's the taking of the labor of the black majority. So you can't say that Helen Zille is wrong in terms of her statements on colonialism, but at the same time maintain black people as landless in the country of her birth.
Yeah, Mr. Dastrop, sorry, Lindsay, to interrupt you. I just want to get Professor Sipho Siepe, political analyst who joins us now. Professor Siepe, I mean, Helen Zille makes it a point to remind us of her political credentials, fighting against apartheid all her life, in those words, and claiming the legacy of Mandela, etc. We must give her the credit that she indeed did blackify or transform the DA on the surface. Do you think all of this will be eroded if no action or meaningful action is taken against her?
I think the first thing that we must deal with is these white people who you also find them also in the ANC,
who are actually racist, but they use their association with the struggle as something that should almost exonerate them from us looking at them as people whose interests are largely about white interests. We have made a mistake to assume that just because you had the white people who thought they could be leaders of black people, and there were many of us who were willing to be led by white people, and when you look at even their own constitution, you see a white imprint in it. So you also have some of the people who insult black people on a daily basis. And when you try to tell them that they are being racist, then they tell you about the past that they were involved in the struggle. So black people must dismiss that without even trying to entertain it. The people who are racist were even racist, even those for whom our mothers raised. That did not stop them from being racist, despite their association with the black mothers who raised them. So that's the first thing. So one must not entertain that. But coming to Helen Zille is simply being honest. She believes what she says. So the question for the DA, and it is those beliefs that she has held over a number of years that show the DA growing. So it is correct to challenge those who suddenly say Helen Zille is racist while they're remaining in the DA, because her perspectives have not changed. But what is important is that she's been consistent in her views. This is the same Helen Zille who talked about black people being refugees in the country of their birth. And you didn't see this jumping up and down and people saying what she said is has a colonial imprint. That was allowed. What you see happening in the DA, you find some white people who no longer want Helen Zille to be in that position. They actually, this is what you may call a form of white-on-white violence. And what they do, they have a black person to take their white-on-white violence to its logical consequence of removing another white person. So Musimamane could easily be simply a useful idiot for white interest. But at the same time, one should also say there's also a possibility that the blackening of the DA by having a number of black people creates what I call a clash of experiences. Musi cannot continue to run away from his blackness in the same way that Lindiwe Mazibuko, despite pretending to be one of the DA, having been embraced, she came to a situation where she felt that there were issues that she could not agree with Helen Zille on, those that had to do with affirmative action and BE, because it doesn't matter how much you've been socialized into the DA's modus of seeing the world. Yeah. Your blackness and your black experience.
Professor Siape, yes, I hate to interrupt you, but also respectfully not to call another man names and calling him a black idiot, just as a point of you know, trying to maintain order. Lindsay, just in terms...
This is a metaphor. No. Yeah. Now, this is a metaphor that is used. We're not saying Musi knows what he wants. It is in his interest to have that public image to be there. But the point is, black people have always been used. And Musi would always be seen as that until such time that the black people in the DA begin to make it clear that the white interest is no longer their obsession. But at the moment, it is still unclear to us to assume that this is not the white people wanting to get rid of Helen Zille because of their own past clashes. In the same way that you find black people fighting amongst each other in the same party. So here you have a person who is actually being used. But what is most important is that Helen Zille knows the story. This is what was very clear, is that Musi is supposed to be a leader of the DA. Does not even understand the constitution of the DA. And this is a person who wants to lecture South Africans about the constitution of the country when he cannot even understand the constitution of his own party.
All right, let's give Lindsay a response. Sorry, Professor Siape. Lindsay, just you think or do you anticipate an exodus of black members of the DA based on the outcome of the disciplinary hearing?
It will take time, and unfortunately, the House Negro doesn't just jump out of the house and wander off into the field and prepare to burn the house down. It takes time. It takes conscientization on a continuous basis. Lady Mazumkus survived quite a long time before she eventually realized that there's just no way that you can reconcile blackness with an anti-black, racist political organization like the Democratic Alliance. But what we need to do now, critically, is make a clarion call and appeal to Musimaya and all black people in the Democratic Alliance. You cannot say that Helen Zille is wrong for a tweet on colonialism and still say black people must share the land with white people, while we know that white people own the majority of the land in this country. Musimaya Mani cannot reconcile being opposed to Helen Zille's tweets and at the same time say that black people must buy back stolen land. Musimaya Mani and all black people in the Democratic Alliance who are opposed to Helen Zille's tweets must come out clear and say colonialism is bad, the theft of our land is bad, the enslavement of our people into labor systems of capitalism is bad, the stripping of our ways of living as black people, our religious forms and our ways of living is bad. This then means that we must come together as black people and take back the land and ensure that we go against the Democratic Alliance and all political organizations and white people in general who say that land belongs to both black and white, land can be shared, colonialism wasn't that bad. Black people must unite, those in the DA, even Musimaya Mani, he must come out here and say, colonialism is bad, yes, now we agree. Let's unite as black people and take back the land and oppose Helen Zille in practice on the issue of colonialism by saying, Helen Zille, colonialism was a bad thing, it was a stripping of black people's ways of living, it enforced us into a labor system and it stole our land, and therefore we're going to take this back by any means necessary.
And we're going to leave it there. That's Lindsay Maasdorp, a national spokesperson for the Black First to Land First, and Professor Sipho Siepe, political analyst, joining us via satellite. And thanks to you at home for watching as well. We'll continue now with other stories on our news lineup. Now,